As a Brexiteer, it's been hard not to hear the various different cries since June the 23rd. They have no mandate. We never voted for this. She's an unelected PM, and this is not the will of the people. I've always been consistent in my view that what this country needs is certainty, and I truly hope that on June the 9th the country will wake up united by the election results. But I have to say, I'm surprised by the assumption that the Tory party will win hands down. I know the strength of feeling of Remainers. I still get abused every single time I talk about Brexit, and I definitely do not trust the polls. In my mind, a landslide for Theresa May is by no means guaranteed. This election will be much closer than everybody is making out. We Brexiteers should use it as a wake-up call to secure Brexit once and for all, and to finally start building the future. What's that you say? Brexit really does mean Brexit? Well, cheers to that.
Well, I think the sad thing about this, Michelle, is that, you know, you Brexiteers, it's like what we've been discussing throughout the programme, you Brexiteers are able to do that. You know, it's quite clear where you vote, it's clear who you support if you want a hard Brexit. It's Theresa May and her government. For those of us that are Remainers, as you know, the decision isn't as straightforward. I think also a landslide for her is, again, like what Afa was saying before, does not in any way reflect a mandate for a hard Brexit. The problem is, because we don't have a viable opposition, there are people who are going to face with no choice but to vote for her for other reasons, not just because of Brexit, in terms of wanting stronger leadership or a government, that, a cabinet that actually looks like a government. Those are decisions that people are going to have to make as well. So I disagree with you there.
So I don't agree, just briefly, I don't agree with this notion of hard Brexit, by the way. It really, like, to me...
What do you mean? Well, that's what she's doing.
But it's just Brexit. And I think that when people go hard Brexit, soft Brexit, extreme Brexit, whatever Brexit, that's the thing that confuses me. Did we want to leave the European Union? And the European Union is a collection of things, whether it's a single market or whatever. Yes or no was the question we got asked. We didn't get asked, do you want to leave the European Union but keep half a leg in over there and half an arm in into that bit? And so I just don't like this notion of hard and soft.
That, to me, was the big flaw with the referendum, because it was that one question, do you want to leave or do you want to stay? Did most of the electorate understand the consequences of leaving the single market, leaving the customs union? I don't think so. I didn't hear that discussed
hang on a minute.
properly.
You
should listen to my show.
But you was on the remaining campaign.
So
you can't say, did people understand the consequence? That was the job of the campaigns to explain and articulate what this meant. So you just shook your head and said they didn't understand, but that was partly your job.
If you're going to use that point, then actually, if you see what Boris and many of the Brexiteers were saying, they were saying, oh no, we're still going to have access to the single market.
Oh, so I think the campaigns were cross on both sides.
They were still saying that a Brexit meant a soft Brexit. Actually, if you look at what they campaigned on, hardly any of them said, oh, we're going to leave the single market, we're going to leave all the benefits. What they said was, we're going to close our borders. That's what, and 350 million for the NHS. So they never campaigned on the thing that Theresa May is now pushing through.
But what will be interesting...
And we don't, unfortunately, have a clear enough... You know,
so what will be interesting to see is, I mean, young people in this country voted overwhelmingly against Brexit. They wanted to remain.
Yeah, when you say overwhelmingly, what was the turnout of young voters?
Remember, it was better than what was expected.
It was about 70, wasn't it? 70 for
young voters.
For young voters, and it was 80 for the total, wasn't it? Something like that. Anyway, it will be interesting.
No, turnout was higher than expected.
If those young voters turned out again and voted for someone who didn't agree with a hard Brexit, actually you could influence the whole thing.
Yeah.
What we know is likely to happen is actually the people who will turn out en masse are the old, and the people who won't turn out are the young.
Yeah. But that's their fault, then.
It is their fault.
And I feel, because I hear this all the time. But you don't believe it's democracy? The old has taken the future of the young. Well, I'm sorry, but if you can't be bothered to get out and vote, what's your point?
Michelle, it's not just about blame. I hear you. I mean, no, you know, everyone has to be responsible for themselves in a democracy. So I agree, you know, it's your responsibility as a voter to go out and vote. But for me, attributing blame is not really a useful discussion. You know, the point is that we are doing something with existential consequences that will affect future generations. Yeah. And a lot of people in the country don't agree with it. And a lot of the people who don't agree with it aren't voting. And it's a problem, you know, whether you can solve it easily, whether it's their fault, it doesn't stop it being a problem, because the people who are going going to live with the consequences are the people who aren't actually having a say.
Well, it's always your fault if you choose not to vote.
And
it's no one else's fault.
And even though I've just said it's everyone's responsibility to vote, and I stick with that, there are also reasons why people don't vote. You know, we don't have an education system that really instills the value of democracy. A lot of politics is very inaccessible for people. Just watch PMQs. It's still braying.
I didn't,
balling.
by the way, just as an FYI, I didn't vote until I was 30 years old.
There you go.
Because I couldn't be bothered, quite frankly. So that's my responsibility, my fault, and I deal with the consequences up until the age of 30 of anything that would have happened.
What changed at 30 then?
Well, when I was growing up, I wasn't politically engaged. I just felt a little bit like, well, who cares what I vote for? They're going to do what they want to do. I didn't believe anyone. I didn't trust anyone. I just thought, well, who cares? I couldn't be bothered.
And did you feel like any part of your upbringing or education or social conditioning had encouraged you to feel involved and to have a stake?
Probably
well,
not.
I think if you'd have asked any of my friends when I was growing up, do you vote? None of us would have said yes.
And you just put that down to individual laziness. You don't think there's some kind of systemic reason why people like you when you're young all feel that that's just not something for them?
I think that we just, to us, it was just a little bit like, well, then no one really probably represents us. No one's going to do what they say they're going to do.
There you go.
And what's the point? Yeah, but I never would have then said, for example, if I was 25, I would never have then said, and therefore this is unfair.
That's a failure of democracy. If people like you feel like that, sorry, Jean, that is a failure of democracy as well as your individual responsibility.
But she also lived in Hull, where...
What's that going to do with anything?
Well, because
donkey.
Yes,
where are we going with this, Greg?
One of the great problems, because one of the great problems in this country is that there's so many constituencies where your vote makes absolutely no difference.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
Well,
sorry, just briefly. Okay, just kind of, you know, clutching and straws comes to mind whenever I hear you. For this idea about we didn't know about the single market, if you chose to engage in the debate, you did know about the single. Most people did.
No, but the leading Brexiteers said we would still have access to the single market.
Well, people make claims. Well, it was up to your mob to dispel them, wasn't it? But ultimately, which side pumped out a government-sponsored leaflet that came through everybody's door at the tune, I think, of about £5 million, warning us that the world will come to an end, the benefits of staying in the EU? It was your mob. You had that money, you got that leaflet, you still lost, and my sense is, as Michelle writes, you guys will continue, even if Mrs May is returned with a thumping majority, which I think she will be, you will still blame Brexit on the fact that it rained, or there's an R in the month. You will always find something to moan about.
I need to just say, I am not officially part of the Remain campaign, just for the record.
Well,
which side, which side said there was £350 million extra?
Exactly.
That's a really fundamental
per week. I would like some of that. I think, actually, if Mrs May is serious about wanting to listen to the younger generation, well, you know, the young people, 16 and 17-year-olds, were not given an opportunity to vote in the referendum. Maybe this will be that she actually should give them the chance to vote in this election, and then that way they can make their voice heard. Because it's them that it's going to affect.